Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of John Steinbeck's East of Eden. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book is about, tell you the things that I liked and tell you things that I didn't like, if there were any. And just as a spoiler, there really wasn't much that I didn't like. In fact, this will be less of a review and more of a just straight recommendation because I thought this book was absolutely fantastic. I've read 3 Steinbeck books now in my life: Grapes of Wrath, which I thought was amazing, Of Mice and Men, and now East of Eden. But it's been a while since I delved into the Steinbeck realm. I feel like I've matured as a reader and as an enjoyer of literature. So I wanted to go back in and I know that East of Eden is highly recommended, so I wanted to check it out, and I really was not disappointed. It is a classic for a reason. For those of you that have no idea what it's about, I went into this book completely blind too, so I think it's a perfectly good way to approach it. But this book takes place in the late 1800s all the way to like the 1910s. And for the most part, follows Adam Trask, starts when he was born, basically all the way to his death. But it's interesting structure in the way that's just, he's kind of our home base. We check in with him a lot. But really, the focus is sometimes on him, but kind of branches off from characters that are parallel to his life or intersect with his life. So it kind of jumps around a bit. It's kind of an ensemble cast, but with Adam as our home base. As a character named Adam in a book called East of Eden, there are definitely some religious parallels. I think Steinbeck is kind of known for that, at least in his most famous work that I've read. Grapes of Wrath has a lot of religious allegory. This is the same, and I'll get more into that a little bit later, but if you're wary of that kind of thing, I wouldn't say it's not something that he bonks you over the head with. It's really used for thematic resonance, and I think it's done really, really well. But like I said, I'll get into that later. But before we get into the deep theme, juicy theme stuff that I just love so much, one thing I have to commend Steinbeck on is his character work. It's fantastic. It's just a different tier of writing that these classic authors are. And that's why they're classic. That's why they transcend all these decades of literature. Because he has a way of writing characters where you know exactly who they are, what their flaws are, what their strengths are, in single sentences. And I don't know how he does it, because it's hard to pick out specific sentences. I've highlighted a bunch of them when I was reading it on my Kindle. But it's just like he gives you one sentence where it's like, you read it, I know exactly who that person is. I know somebody like that. And and some people don't like this about classics, I'll give them that, but it's a type of novel that is very dense in the sense that it's not something you could skim over. You can't skim over an introductory paragraph, be like, okay, I get it, he's kind of tall, whatever, he's kind of mean, all right, great. Every sentence could be hiding a piece of very valuable character information because they're all so fantastically articulated and crafted sentences. And I think it just makes for maybe a more exhausting reading experience if you don't like to literally read every single word, but it's just so dense with information and great observations about humanity that really makes these really well-rounded, interesting characters. So like, for example, like when we're introduced to like Adam, just like the way that he's introduced, it could very easily be, oh, he's a nice kid. But there's like these layers to it with his background. It's hard to explain without giving like spoilers about his arc and like what his trauma is and how that affects him in the rest of his life. But it's all like carefully planted just in these juicy sentences. I know I sound so smart right now, but it's really something that you have to pay attention to. And like I said, you can't skip a single line. And also in that regard, if I was going to say anything negative about this book, it would be that the first maybe quarter of it is kind of just like laying a lot of groundwork with these great character-laden sentences, but it's a little bit unclear where it's going or what the book is about for the first quarter. However, after you push through like the first quarter and you don't worry about what it's about and just enjoy the characters, it really all starts to get revealed. And it reminded me of another classic that I love a lot, The Count of Monte Cristo, in the sense that all the small things that he sets up in the first quarter of the book does pay off, not even at the end of the book, but in the middle of the book, in the next act and stuff like that. Because there might be parts where you're like reading about Adam, reading about him growing up, and you're like, why are you introducing me to this random guy in another town halfway across the country? Like, why do we divert there? I don't understand what he's talking about, because then he just disappears and we're back to Adam again. It's because it's going to pay off in an important way, and then the characters like Kathy introduced in kind of this like tangent way, but it's all these characters, and if they're introduced, it's because they're important. He does not waste a single word. I guess is like the kind of thesis of my last 4 minutes of rambling. Steinbeck does not waste a single word. So if you feel like there's not really a point, you don't understand where this is going or why we're reading about this Adam Trask character, you got to trust the process. That's all I can say. But that being said, I think what Steinbeck does extraordinarily well, maybe better, or at least some of the best I've ever seen in writing, and even in classic literature, is that he is not afraid to tell you what the book is about earlier than most. So I feel like most classics are classic because they have like this underlying theme. What is the book about? Why was it written? You know, the juicy stuff that we all love so much. I just say juicy so many times today. I gotta stop. Steinbeck is not afraid. He has a scene in the middle of this book where these characters are having a philosophical discussion about what the book is about. East of Eden, Adam, this character wants to build his own Garden of Eden, wants to build his own paradise. They start talking about Adam and Eve. He starts talking about Cain and Abel, right? Adam and his brother are two siblings at each other's throats, and then there's a parallel of that later on in the story as well. They have this deep philosophical conversation in the center of the story, and they come to a conclusion about basically the theme of like choosing your own destiny, choosing the good inside yourself, fighting the bad versus the good, and battling humanity, stuff like that. They have this very long conversation, and it's fantastically written. But it's Steinbeck telling you, and this isn't a spoiler, it's just what the book is about. This is what the book is about. And I think sometimes authors maybe would reveal that for like the final act is kind of like, this is what you've been reading about. But Steinbeck will say, this is what you're reading about, so read it. And I feel like even though there was set up maybe in the first quarter, from that conversation onward, knowing the parallel that Steinbeck is creating, it almost, at least in my opinion, it allows you to participate in the story in maybe a way that like is harder to do with other classics. 'Cause I feel like you read a lot of classic literature, and without a professor or a teacher telling you what to look for, it's easy for the layman to get lost in the sauce, as they say. Like, what is this book about? And then the literature teacher's like, oh, it's about death. And you're like, oh, this was a great book. I wish I could understand it on my own. Steinbeck gives you the tools to do it and lets you be a connection maker, an allegory spotter, by telling you this is what you should be looking for. And then all the parallels that come out, all the biblical allusions that come out in the second half of the book aren't references to the Bible that you got to read the Bible before you read East of Eden. He already made those connections for you, so then you feel like you're doing that legwork on your own, and you're really, I feel like, experiencing this theme in the deeper way, especially in the second half, or maybe even just the third act, because this book is distinctly separated into acts. The first act is just purely Adam and his upgrowing. Then we kind of transition to this character of Samuel, who's like the best. He's just the best character ever. Then we transition finally into Adam's son. It's kind of the 3 acts there, and by the theme getting smack dab in the middle of that book, it makes you retrospective about the past relationships and the setup of Adam and all the characters, and what does Samuel play into this, and what does every character play into this. Because after this theme is revealed, every character takes on a new meaning, and every you could see very clearly how each of them represent either good, or they represent evil, or a lot of times they represent the normal person who has both warring in inside them. And it's not just like good always triumphs over evil. It's sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And every single morsel of this book is just sending you that theme in different ways. But I think that the message of the book is just so powerful that like the ending message that you walk away with is so powerful, and it's so motivating, and it feels more realistic. I feel like this world that he's created, where it's not just like a reveal at the end, oh, the good guys won, the theme is complete. We know what the theme is. And instead of like us looking, I don't know this, oh, hold on, stay with me here. Instead of looking at the story as an exemplification of the theme, by giving it to us early, we're hoping that the theme comes true almost. We're wishing upon a star, Steinbeck. Can you believe it? We're wishing upon a star. And it was fantastic. Not only is it fantastically written, but the theme is right there on point, and just the way that I I got no more words. I could keep talking, but I don't even know what else to say. It's fantastic. As a little bit of background about myself, because that's why we're really here, right? Theme in the meaning of a story is the most important thing to me when reading a book. So I know I talked about it ad nauseum, but the way that Steinbeck just handed us this theme on a platter and said, witness it. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And there's parallels between the first act and the third act, and it's just powerful. It changed my life. It's one of those, you know what? And that's why I like classics, guys, because it changes the brain chemistry. You know, a book you use for enjoyment, a classic changes your world. Am I right? And I'm speechless. After 11 minutes straight of speaking, I'm speechless. Check it out, guys. Who would have thought a classic book is good? Who would have thought? I did. I thought, and I witnessed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and want to see more like it in the future. First review of 2024 also, by the way, for those of you that keep time. And man, we're off to a great start. Technically finished it in 2023, though. I just want on record that I finished it because I said I would, but it's finished. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it. I really do.